Welcome to the Canoga Park Youth Arts Center's new series, Our National Parks, where each class will go visit a natural area in a national park that's driving distance from where we are now in Los Angeles in California. So today we are going to Utah, and we're going to go to Arches National Park. This is a beautiful, beautiful park. It has over 2,000 arches. But this is my personal rendition of them. Let's take a look at some photographs from Arches. This is where Arches is. It's right there, and that is the state of Utah. Utah has 5 really big national parks that are all stunning. This picture is the one that's the most like, when I pulled up information on it, this was the one that they seem to really promote. So this, I think, is like the most famous arch, but there are, like I said, over 2,000 of these arches. Let's look at another arch. Look how delicate this one is. And they have names too. This one is called the Landscape Arch. Now, these arches were created from ancient geological processes that pushed up salt towers and created these arches because the salt wore away really easily during the rain and things like that and wind. So you can see, look, here's arches within an arch. So there's like photo ops all over the place. So that's how they were made, by salt. Now they're sandstone, I believe, and there's many of them. I'm sure they're still being made. Now this land was occupied by humans up to 10,000 years ago. So it's an ancient and sacred area that humans have been enjoying for a really long time. It became a natural park in 1923, I believe, a national park, because it was brought to the attention of someone who was working on the railroads, and they said, hey, by the way, have you seen this amazing area? And once it was brought to their attention, they turned it into a national park. Let's do a quick look at my painting. Now, if I had used a yellow sunsetty sky, can you see how it would have been confusing with all of this orange and then yellow on top of that? So I went with a blue sky this time, but I always mention that because I don't want you to just automatically go to a blue sky. They can be any color you want. Now, the further away something is from us in a landscape, the lighter it is. And the reason for this is atmosphere. The air between us, the viewer, and that mountain has water vapor in it. And the water vapor makes the image a little lighter. And as we get closer, things get darker. So whenever you want to create three-dimensional space in a landscape, the things that are farther away from you are going to be lighter, and the things that are closer to you are going to be darker. Look how my arch here is the darkest part of my landscape. And even though I'm going to use oil pastels, you can use them before you start, but you can also use them after. I wanted this to be a little bit lighter, so I grabbed my oil pastel, my white one, and I just went in and made that the lighter because I wasn't able to do it with paint. Same with this black. I wanted that to really pop. It's the only place there's black. I wanted it to be dynamic. So you can go right over paint if you'd like to. So let's start our arches. I'm going to start with a quick sketch. And when I say a quick sketch, that's really what I mean. And you know this is a landscape, so that means that my horizon line where the sky meets the land is first. Notice how none of my mountains are the same. Now there's another row there too. So I'm going to do another row of mountains. And then there's this weird cliffy thing that comes up like this. Kind of drops off. And then we have the land that our arch is on, and our arch, I'm just going to kind of pencil it in here. Our arch is roughly around there and ends around here. So I'm going to do the bottom part of my arch, and it gets a little bit fatter toward the bottom. Okay, quick sketch. Now I'm going to use my oil pastels, and I'm going to add some detail and texture. Okay, I've got the orange in, but now I want to add more colors. Remember how we talked about this? Well, we can put more colors in. And I'm just putting a little bit of texture in this. And now let's try some yellow. Remember, I'm going to paint this. All right, now I'm going to do my clouds. But I am going to kind of like color my clouds in. You may not be able to see them. You kind of see the reflection. They're like right there. Hard to see. But when we paint them, they will definitely be visible when we try to paint our blue hole. All right. I think we're ready for paint at this point. Remember when you're painting to have things set up in advance. So I have my paints over here because I'm left-handed. So I'm not bringing my brush over and over and over again. So let's start with some light orange. And I want it to be light, really light. So I'm going to put a bunch of water in here. You see how much lighter that is with all the water in there? Next row darker still. I'm adding a little red to the orange to make it a little darker. And now my arches is the darkest of all. This means I'm going to use more red. I'm going to stir my paint longer so I get more pigment. Do you see how I'm getting more paint quite often? Because I want my color to stay dark. If I try to make the brush paint more than it should, my colors start getting lighter again. Right, and all that's left is my sky. I'm going to go with an aqua blue as opposed to a cobalt blue. You see how my secret clouds are no secret any longer? I'm just popping up everywhere. I want my sky to be a little bit lighter at the bottom than it is at the top. So I'm not getting more paint. I'm letting the brush with water do the bottom part. And then I add the pigment to the top. All right. Now, we got our painting done. We have our oil pastel done. But now we need to clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to take my black. And because this is in shadow, I'm going to add some detail. But remember, we're doing rocks here. So it's kind of like scribbleland in some ways. Remember, rocks are rough. We don't need them to be all cleaned up. This is in shadow because it's underneath the arch. Lines that go like this across here. And because this is the only place where there's any black, it's really going to stand out. All right. I'm going to take my white, and I'm still going to put a little bit of white on my lightest area there. You see how using the white on top of everything kind of blends everything together? You can overlap your oil pastels. It's very effective when you do it. Look at the difference, see? One looks like it has much more atmosphere than the other. It's going to make our arch stand out more too. The lighter this backwards. Right. I'm going to do a little bit more on our second, but I'm not going to press as hard because I don't want it to be as light. So we're just going to lightly, especially where it gets next to the arch, so there's more contrast. Contrast is very useful. It helps keep different areas of your painting separate. Now, we got a little bit of a show that this is separate. All right, I'm just going to take my crayons, and I'm just going to do a final line around the outside of our arch. Look at my hand. It's going crazy, right? I'm not carefully staying in the lines because this is a rock. I just want to smooth out some of the edges, maybe blend some of this black around a little bit. But I'm going to go over this black. See how it kind of pulls it into different areas? Blends it a little bit more, makes this a little bit more naturalistic. Texture. Alrighty. I think we're about done here. Wow. Well, that was Arches National Park. And we did a landscape. And, there's a difference between the one that I do with you guys in 5 minutes and the one that I do when I have a little bit more than 5 minutes. But you can see we put layers of paint and oil pastel. Feel free to work your art. Don't just color in all the spaces and call it a day. I went over a lot of this stuff over and over and over again, and that builds up a really rich surface. So I hope you enjoyed traveling to Arches National Park today. I hope you join us again at the Canoga Park Youth Arts Center's new class, the National Parks. We'll see you then.